What's up, my beautiful houseplant friends? I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much for clicking on this video and supporting my channel. I am Sydney and welcome to Peaceful Planting. I have had a ton of requests asking me to do specific care guide videos. So that's what I'm doing today, so let's get started. Okay, so if you clicked on this video, it likely means that you already have an Anthurium, multiple Anthuriums, or you just got your first Anthurium and you are wanting to know how in the world to care for it. Now, one of the most important things to keep in mind is where they grow and what environment they are used to. Anthuriums naturally grow in Central America, Northern South America, and the Caribbean. This means that they are growing in those rainforest areas under large canopies of trees receiving filtered and bright light. That environment is typically humid, warm, and very tropical, which is important to keep in mind while you are caring for your Anthurium inside. Now, this plant is also an Aroid. I'm sure you have heard that word before being thrown around in the houseplant community. What this means is that their bloom or inflorescence has a spathe and a spadix. Now, the spathe is a modified leaf that surrounds and protects the spadix. It also draws, pollinators and things like that to the spadix. And that is how these plants reproduce. Okay, so all of that being said, now that we have a good idea on what the environment typically looks like for these plants, let's talk a little bit about soil. And the reason I want to start with soil is because the first thing that you want to know is how in the world am I going to have this plant survive in my home? The most important part for me is soil. Really, you want to make sure you get this mix right. So let's talk about it more. Now, as you can imagine, in these rainforest areas, these plants are used to great water retention, but also good drainage. Now, this means that you want your plant to receive the amount of water that it needs without staying in soggy soil. Okay, so let's talk about how to even get to a point where you have soil that has good water retention and good drainage. So to get this mixture, you are going to have to mix a few things together. So you'll have something like soil and sphagnum moss. This is going to assist you with that water retention. You can also mix in things like perlite, bark, or charcoal. Okay, friends, let me tell you a little secret though. This is not talked about enough in the houseplant community, in my opinion. When you use bark in these soil mixtures, eventually they degrade. They break down and become almost sponges. So it just helps with that water retention. So if you are using bark to create those air pockets for good drainage in your soil, just keep in mind, eventually that bark will break down and just become essentially a sponge. So what I use as my preferred soil amendment to create that good drainage is charcoal and perlite. Both of these things you can find at your local garden centers. Now, what are we going to pot our Anthuriums in? Because they do enjoy a lot of airflow and really good drainage, they don't like to be sitting in soggy soil, which we learned earlier in this video. There are two pots that I would highly recommend. First off, terracotta pots. And some of you all may cringe to that. I have used terracotta for all of my Anthuriums. And the reason why is because terracotta allows for a lot of airflow to the roots because it's so porous. And it also does something really awesome. It draws out any extra moisture in the soil because obviously terracotta just naturally absorbs that moisture. Another thing you can consider are net pots. I personally do not use these, but I have seen so much success with these. So if you want to give this a shot, go for it. I have also seen these net pots being placed in cache pose, which is just another pot on the outside, and I believe that is to control the airflow to the roots so that the plant isn't drying out too much. We will get to why you do not want your Anthurium to dry out a little bit later. So we've talked about soil and pots. I want to move on to watering your plants. Here I have an Anthurium Ace of Spades. I have it in a terracotta pot, which we just spoke about. Now, learning how to water these plants is a very important part of caring for your Anthurium. So when you water these plants, you want to water thoroughly. If you have a saucer underneath your plant, just make sure it's not sitting in water. I recommend just dumping the water out after a few minutes once everything has really drained through. That is to avoid root rot because these plants unfortunately do rot very easily. So you're going to want to let it dry out slightly between waterings. These plants are very sensitive to drought. You will want to allow it to dry out a little bit, but if you can stick your finger about an inch into the soil and it is dry, you more than likely are safe to water your Anthurium. One key point I really want to stress is new leaves. As you can see, this is a new leaf. New leaves are typically that golden, beautiful, bronzy color. Now, when they come out, they are very, very small and grow to like 10 times the size. Anthuriums become even more sensitive to drought when you have a new leaf coming out. If you maintain a healthy watering balance, you will be able to have larger leaves. If the plant senses that it is in a drought, this leaf growth will actually be stunted. They will likely dry out more quickly when they have new leaves because of all of the water that it takes to grow this beautiful big leaf. Okay friends, let's talk about lighting. Now remember earlier in the video we talked about it being under this large canopy of trees in the rainforest with all that humidity living its best life. So take that information and really put it into perspective in your home. These plants like filtered bright light. They are not going to want the sun beaming directly on their leaves, but rather a very bright room. Now, one thing I've really always strongly disliked about care videos is the lighting portion. It's really honestly extremely difficult to describe the type of lighting you want your plant in. Now, the reason being is that everybody's home is different. If you can physically read a book right next to your plant throughout the day, you are more than likely fine. You'll want to put this plant somewhere where the sun is showing all day long. It is shining on this plant all day long, but not directly. I'm gonna share a very strange tip that I have for you, okay? This is what I do in my home. I get myself down to the level of the plant, I look up at the sun. If I am staring directly into the sun, I'm gonna wanna move that plant because I know Anthuriums do not like that direct sunlight. But if I am looking up at the sky and I can see this beautiful filtered light without staring directly into the sun, then I know I've got a good spot. Now you'll wanna test that out throughout the day to make sure your plant is receiving that same sunlight throughout the day. I hope that helps. I know it's very strange, but it has worked for me. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about fertilizer. When you first repot your plant, keep in mind that the soil does have slow releasing fertilizer in it, more than likely. So this means that you should not be fertilizing your plant for the first 6 months after repotting it. I will say that this portion of the video makes me slightly uncomfortable because I am so lax on the fertilizing of my plant. Basically what I mean is, I do not have a set schedule. I just kind of fertilize as I go along, fertilize everything as one. I basically have no plan for fertilizing my plants. So what I did for you is I did some research. Anthuriums by nature are not heavy feeders. This means they will not need an excessive amount of fertilizer. So be careful how much you are fertilizing. Really focus in on your fertilizing schedule for your Anthuriums. Over fertilizing can really lead to some serious issues with your plants. Specifically on those beautiful leaves, you will have burning and things like that. And it can also burn the roots, which you kind of need roots, so avoid that. Okay, so since we know that they are not heavy feeders, what does that mean? That means that you'll want to be careful with the strength of the fertilizer you are using. It is recommended for Anthuriums to cut the strength of the fertilizer down to 1/4. That means that on the back of that fertilizer package, that recommendation only do 1/4 of it. So if it's recommending 1 tablespoon, do 1/4 tablespoon. I hope that clears that up for you. Another thing is if you're really into Anthurium blooms, you'll want to get a fertilizer that is high in phosphorus. Phosphorus is going to be that middle number. More phosphorus equals more blooms. All right, friends, that is about all of the information I have for you. I hope this Anthurium care guide video was helpful. Please leave any questions, comments down in the comment section below. Also, if you are one of my subscribers and you see a comment in the comment section with a question that you think you can help that person with, please reply. Let's use this platform as a community to help each other. I will also be linking some very helpful and informational videos about Anthurium care in the description of this video. Please refer to those videos if you need any more assistance, and I hope this helped. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you are not subscribed. Thank you all for all of your support, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.